At Sunday's barbecue, my son threw my steak to the ground and said, "Want meat? Go chew it at the nursing home, you useless old woman." The next morning, I packed a suitcase and put the house up for sale. My phone rang 28 times. He begged me not to go. "I'm glad you're here. Stick with me to the end and drop your city in the comments. I want to see just how far this story travels." My name's Ramona. I'm 69. Last Sunday, in my own backyard, at my own barbecue, my son dropped my steak in the dirt like I was a stray dog. "Want meat? Go chew it at the nursing home, you useless old woman." That line didn't just land, it broke something in me. I stared down at the steak I'd been waiting for all afternoon, lying there in the dust at my feet. Travis stood over me with that smug, bitter face I'd seen harden over the years and always made excuses for. His wife Krista laughed out loud like it was a sitcom. My grandkids, 8 and 10, just looked at me with those flat, empty stares they'd learned from their parents. Nobody stepped in. Nobody said a thing. I crouched, knees aching, and picked up the steak with shaking hands. Not from pain, from rage. The kind that's been simmering for years in silence. "Travis," I said, brushing dirt off the meat, "what did you just say to me?" He rolled his eyes, that same teenage roll he used to pull when I asked him to clean his room. "Oh, come on, Mom, don't be so dramatic. It was just a joke, a joke." 20 years of being treated like the maid in my own house, and now it was all a joke to him. I looked around at the deck I paid for, the pool I put in for kids who barely spoke to me, the shiny new grill Travis demanded for Father's Day like he was some kind of hero. Even though he never put anyone before himself, this house, this 4-bedroom place in the suburbs, I worked 3 jobs to buy it after his father walked out. Everything I had went into making sure Travis didn't grow up with less. Private school, gear for every sport, college tuition I couldn't afford. I gave up everything, my time, my health, my dreams, to make sure he had a chance, and this is what I got in return. "Get me another steak from the kitchen," Travis said, already turning his back like I was on his payroll, "and grab more beer while you're at it." I stood there holding that filthy piece of meat, and something inside me just let go. It didn't explode, it didn't make a sound. It broke quiet, like a thread finally snapping after being stretched too thin for too long. I walked through the house, past the living room where I raised him alone, past the framed pictures of birthdays and graduations he barely acknowledged. In the kitchen, I dropped the steak in the trash and looked around, at the room that had felt more like a cage than a home for decades. This wasn't the first time, not even close. Just last month, Travis had used my credit card without asking and racked up $800 on golf gear. When I brought it up, he called me selfish and said I should be thankful he still bothered to visit his crazy old mother. 6 months earlier, he'd moved his whole family into my house just for a little while, after they got kicked out of their apartment for not paying rent. Krista wasted no time rearranging my furniture, tossing my belongings, and acting like I was just some random house guest. I was cooking their meals, doing their laundry, babysitting their kids while they went out for dinner and movies. The one time I asked when they might be moving out, Travis laughed and said, "Why would we move? This setup works perfectly." Perfect. For them. I stepped back outside with another steak and a cold beer like the help they'd turned me into. Travis took them without a word, already grumbling about something else. I sat down in the flimsy plastic chair he'd shoved my way while he stretched out in the expensive patio set I'd paid for. And right then, I made up my mind. I was finished. Done being invisible in my own damn life. Done letting the kid I gave everything to treat me like I was in the way. Done pretending this mess was what family looked like. That night, after they'd all gone to bed in my house, with my food in their stomachs and their mess left for me to clean, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a list, an important one. By morning, I'd made 3 calls that would shake Travis's world to its core. He didn't see a thing coming. The first call was to Martha's son-in-law, a real estate agent. It wasn't even 6 a.m. yet, but I couldn't wait. I stood in the bathroom with the water running and whispered, "Dave, I need to sell my house." Today, there was a beat of silence. "Ramona, are you okay? This feels sudden. I've never been more sure about anything." He showed up by 7:30 with paperwork and a plan. Travis and his crew were still dead asleep after another night of using my place like a hotel. Dave took photos, jotted down notes, and promised me something I hadn't thought possible, a cash buyer in 24 hours. It's a seller's market, he said quietly while we stood in my kitchen. A house like this, in this neighborhood, it's gold. I've got 3 investors who've been waiting on something just like it. While my son was sound asleep in the guest room he'd claimed as his own personal suite, I was busy signing documents that would take everything away from him. Travis had been banking on this house since he was 25. He bragged to his buddies, his wife, anyone who'd give him 5 minutes, that he was set for life, because mom's got that big house and no one else to give it to. He never held a job for long, never built savings, never made a real plan for himself, because he thought my life would just become his. For the last 5 years, every choice he made rested on the idea that this house, sitting at close to $400,000 in value, would catch him when the rest fell apart. He didn't know I'd changed my will last year after he treated me like something stuck to his shoe during Christmas dinner. He didn't know his name had been scrubbed off everything months ago. More than that, he didn't know I was about to erase him from my life for good. By noon, I had a full-price cash offer, closing in 72 hours. I didn't hesitate. While Travis stretched out by my pool, whining to Krista about how I'd messed up the lunch I made them, I was upstairs, boxing up 38 years of my life in silence. I took the pictures of Travis from when he was little, before he started looking at me like a walking cash machine. I kept my mother's jewelry, my father's books. I kept the quilt my grandmother stitched by hand, and my small collection of ceramic angels I'd spent decades collecting. Everything else stayed. Dave lined up the moving truck for Wednesday morning, the same day we were closing. I'd already paid the deposit on a modest 2-bedroom across town, in a building that didn't allow long-term guests. Just right. Tuesday evening, Travis finally picked up on something. "Mom," he called from the living room, sprawled out on my couch, eating my groceries, watching my TV. "There's some weird paperwork on the kitchen counter." My chest tightened, but my voice stayed calm. "Just some insurance stuff, baby. Nothing major." He grunted and kept watching his show. Even as his entire future fell apart around him, he couldn't be bothered to look closer. That was Travis in a nutshell. He figured things would always turn out fine, because they always had, because I always made sure they did. Wednesday morning came like Christmas in reverse. The moving truck pulled up at 8. By the time Travis rolled out of bed at 10:30, most of my stuff was already packed and loaded. "What the hell's going on?" he asked. He stood there in the half-empty living room, in his underwear and yesterday's t-shirt. "I'm moving," I said, calmly, as I wrapped the last ceramic angel in bubble wrap. "Moving? What do you mean? Moving? Moving where?" "To my new apartment." The color drained from his face. "Apartment? Mom, you can't just up and move into an apartment. What about the house? What about us?" "The house is gone. Closing's in 2 hours." I'll never forget the way he looked at me, stunned, like the floor dropped out from under him, like a kid who just found out Santa was a lie, which, honestly, he kind of had. "Sold. You can't sell the house. We live here. You live here," I told him, sealing up the last box. "I've been stuck here." Krista showed up in the doorway, already sizing up the situation. "Ramona, let's be reasonable about this. You're clearly upset. We can fix this." For 2 decades, Travis had been unknowingly preparing for this moment. Every time he mistook my patience for passivity, every time he crossed the line and I let it slide, he was building toward this exact day. He just never thought I might finally push back. "The new owners show up at noon," I said, handing my keys to Dave. "You should start packing." My new place felt like peace. 2 bedrooms, a little balcony with a view of a garden, and quiet. No one asking me what's for dinner. No one leaving crap for me to clean up. No one pretending I wasn't standing right there. For the first time in 20 years, I ate when I was hungry, not when someone expected a plate in front of them. The phone started ringing at 6:47 p.m. Travis's name lit up the screen. I felt nothing. No guilt, no sadness, not even anger. Just quiet. I let it ring. The second call came 15 minutes later, then another. By bedtime, there were 8 missed calls. I slept better than I had in years. Thursday morning was a full-on blitz. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. When I finally checked, I had 12 missed calls, 7 voicemails. "Mom, call me back. We need to talk about this craziness." That was the first one, still trying to sound in control. By the 5th, the tone had shifted. "Mom, please, The new people want us out by tomorrow. Where are we supposed to go? The eighth message was Krista, sugarcoating every word. Ramona, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You know we care about you. Just pick up the phone so we can sort this out. I didn't even listen to the rest. I erased them all. While Travis was unraveling, I stumbled into something unexpectedly good. My new neighbors treated me like a human being. Mrs. Jung next door showed up with a batch of homemade cookies and wanted to know more about me, what I was into, what I thought about things. I honestly couldn't remember the last time someone asked what I thought. Mr. Herrera from the floor below came over to help me hang some frames and told me, call me Miguel. Then he added, with such honest kindness, you remind me of my mother. Strong women who raised good families deserve respect. If only he knew how off he was about the good family part. On Friday, the calls came non-stop. Calls 13 through 20, all from Travis. His voicemails were spiraling. Mom, they called the cops. They're treating us like squatters. You can't just do this to your own son. We slept in the car last night. The kids are scared. How could you do this to your grandkids? Fine, you want me to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't even know what I did, but I'm sorry. Please, just help us. But Travis still hadn't gotten it. This wasn't about saying sorry. This was about 2 decades of being talked down to, walked over, dismissed like I was just there. You don't get to fix that with one desperate call and a shaky apology. Saturday evening, I was watering the little herb garden I'd started on my balcony when Mrs. Jung knocked. Sweetheart, there's a young man downstairs asking for you, she said gently. He seems upset. I glanced out the window. There he was, Travis, pacing the lot like a dog off its leash. His hair was wild, his shirt looked slept in. Krista was in the car with the kids, probably crying about how the crazy grandma had turned their whole world upside down. I didn't go down. Call 21 came at 9 p.m. I picked up this time. What? Travis, muff, thank God. Look, I get it. You're upset, but I'm not. I cut him off. Upset. Upset means I still give a damn. I'm over it. You can't be over it. I'm your son. Are you? Because sons don't treat their moms like the hired help. Sons don't tear their mothers down in front of their own kids. Sons don't take from their mothers and call it borrowing. Silence. Then, I never stole from you. I laughed. I really laughed. Travis, you've been stealing from me for 20 years. My dignity, my peace, my self-respect. That credit card, that was just the icing on the cake. Where are we supposed to live? That's not my problem anymore. I ended the call, powered off my phone, and left it face down on the kitchen table. I remember how quiet the room felt after that, like something had finally snapped loose inside me. The next morning, a Sunday, I was jolted awake by someone pounding hard on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Travis standing there. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. I know you're in there, he shouted. Open this door. We need to talk. I sat in the kitchen with my coffee, letting it get cold while I listened to him unravel right there in the hallway. He kept yelling like it was going to change something. Then I heard another door open across the hall. Mrs. Jung's voice rang out, sharp and clear. Young man, you're disturbing everyone on this floor. If you don't leave right now, I'll call building security. That's my mother, he yelled back, voice cracking. She sold our house. She made us homeless. Your mother is a lovely woman who deserves peace in her retirement, Mrs. Jung answered firmly. Now leave before I call the police. I heard his footsteps move away, heavy and slow. I smiled a little as I listened. Mrs. Jung barely came up to my shoulder, but somehow she stood stronger than my son, who always thought being tall made him powerful. That afternoon, I was reading a book in my quiet apartment, finally surrounded by only the things that made me feel good. No clutter, no shouting, no guilt, just peace. Then my phone rang one more time. It was the 28th call. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me wanted to know what he'd say now that everything had finally hit him. Mom. His voice was rough, full of desperation. Please, I'm begging you. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll change. I swear I'll be better. Just help us, Travis, I said softly. You had 38 years to be better, and you chose, every single day, not to be a staffer, he said quickly. I made some bad choices, yeah, but I can make it right. I can fix it. No, I said, my eyes on the little garden outside the window, where the first tomatoes were already starting to grow. Some things don't get fixed. Some things are too broken to be put back together. There was a long pause. He didn't know what to say. Finally, he whispered, "So that's it. You're really just going to leave us behind?" "I'm not leaving anyone," I said. "I'm finally choosing myself, something you never showed me how to do." I hung up, knowing it was the last time. And as soon as the call ended, I realized something that should have scared me but didn't. I had absolutely no idea what Travis was going to do next. And for the first time in decades, I honestly didn't care. 3 full weeks passed in complete silence, not a single message, not a knock on the door. I got used to the quiet like it was oxygen. But on a Tuesday morning, just as I was coming back from my walk, I saw them, Travis and Krista, sitting together in the lobby of my building. They looked exhausted, like they hadn't just lost a home, but themselves, too. Travis looked like he'd dropped 20 pounds since I last saw him. His face was sunken, his cheeks hollowed out, and a patchy layer of stubble clung to his jaw like he hadn't touched a razor in days. Krista, always so polished and camera-ready, had mascara streaked down her face, and her designer outfit looked like it had been pulled from a laundry basket. The wrinkles in her blouse, the dirt smudges on her shoes, the dullness in her eyes. It was obvious they'd been living in their car, maybe for a while now. "Hello, Travis," I said, my voice flat, my pace steady as I walked toward the elevator, like nothing was out of place. "Mom, please, just wait," he called, jumping to his feet and stepping right into my way. "We really need to talk." "No," I said, calm but sharp. "We really don't." Krista rose too, sliding into that sugar-coated, guilt-laced voice she used when she wanted something. "Ramona, the kids have been asking about their grandma. This has gone on long enough, don't you think?" I looked right at her, at this woman who had once giggled while my son chucked meat across the dinner table at me like I was a stray dog begging for scraps. "Where are my grandchildren now, Krista?" She shifted from one foot to the other, couldn't meet my eyes. "There with some friends," she muttered. "So, you ditched them because you're sleeping in your car. Sounds like a bold parenting move." I walked past them, heading for the elevator without breaking stride. Travis followed close behind. "Mom, please, just 5 minutes. Let us explain." Something in me stalled. I don't know if it was curiosity or if I just wanted to get a front row seat to the disaster they'd created, but I stopped. "Fine, 5 minutes, not a second more, and we're not going up to my apartment. We talk right here." We settled into the little sitting area by the lobby windows. The chairs were stiff, uncomfortable, the kind no one ever stayed in too long. Outside, I could see the corner of my balcony garden. The basil, oregano, and cherry tomatoes I'd planted were thriving in the summer sun. I'd been learning to cook for one, and it turned out I liked it more than I thought I would. Travis started first. "Look, I want to apologize. What I said at the barbecue, it was out of line. That was wrong." "What else?" I asked, not missing a beat. His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what else are you sorry for? Because if you think one apology about one ugly remark at one barbecue fixes everything, then you haven't learned a damn thing." Krista cut in, that fake soft voice still hanging in the air. "Ramona, we realize now that maybe we didn't always treat you the way we should have. Maybe, didn't always." I laughed, low and bitter. "You moved into my house, Krista, and the first thing you did was start tossing my things into garbage bags. You called it clearing out the clutter. Then you told your kids to call me the maid, as a joke. You emptied my fridge, ran up my utility bills, and got annoyed when I asked you to clean up the mess you made. That ring a bell?" Her face turned red, jaw tightening. "That's not exactly how I remember it, isn't it?" I turned to Travis. "You remember Christmas, don't you? When you took my credit card without asking, and used it to buy your kids presents? Ran it up for $800 I didn't have because I was already paying for everything in that house." Travis looked down at the floor, shifting in his chair. "I told you I'd pay you back." "No, you promised you'd pay me back." "That's not the same thing." I leaned back slowly, my arms crossed, strangely at ease for the first time in a while. "Let me take a wild guess why you're standing here. You're broke. You need a place to crash. You need your mother, again, to pull you out of a mess you walked right into. One more rescue." They glanced at each other like it was all part of the plan. "Nailed it." Travis cleared his throat. "Look, we just need a little support to get back on our feet," he said. "Maybe you could help us out. I mean, maybe there's a way you could pull a loan using your new condo. Or Krista cut in fast, like she'd been waiting for her turn. Maybe the people who bought the house would be open to selling it back. You could ask. I'm sure they'd be understanding. I stared at both of them, two grown adults who've never once taken responsibility for anything in their lives. Not a bill, not a consequence, not even their own bad choices. Do you have any idea what I did with the money from selling that house? I asked. Their eyes lit up like I'd just opened a vault. They thought the money train was about to roll their way again. I gave a third of it away, I said. Their smiles dropped so fast it was almost funny. Specifically, I donated it to nonprofits that protect and support seniors who are mistreated, neglected, or taken advantage of by their own families. Travis's mouth fell open like I'd slapped him. You gave away my inheritance, he said, stunned. Your inheritance. I stood up, let my voice rise with every word. Travis, you don't have an inheritance because you haven't earned one. That's not how this works. Inheritance is something you leave to kids who care, who show up, who respect the person who raised them, not to freeloaders who treat their mother like she's just an ATM with a guilt complex. That was our money. Krista shrieked, the mask completely gone now. We grew up in that house, thought we were a family. No, I said coldly. You were long-term house guests who never paid rent and ignored the rules, and now you're trespassers. I turned and walked toward the elevator, but Travis grabbed my arm. Mom, what about the rest of the money? I yanked my arm free and looked him dead in the eye. The rest of it? That's mine. I'm 69 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm going to spend my money on me. On what? He snapped. Travel, good restaurants, books I actually want to read, a soft chair to grow old in where no one raises their voice at me or asks for a handout. I pressed the elevator button. All the things I've pushed aside for the past 2 decades while cleaning up after 2 full-grown adults who never once said thank you. The doors opened and I stepped in. As they began to shut, Krista called out one last time, her voice sharp with panic. What are we supposed to do now? I looked her straight in the eye, just as the doors slid closed. You learn how to take care of yourselves. Upstairs, I made tea, walked out onto the balcony, and sat down for the first quiet moment I'd had in years. The phone rang twice. I let it. From the second-floor window, I could see them down in the parking lot, yelling at each other. Their voices climbed, echoing off the walls, spilling pieces of their blame game into the evening air. This is all your fault, Krista was yelling, her voice sharp enough to cut through drywall. You said she wouldn't actually go through with it. She's lost her damn mind. Travis shot back, his tone defensive, almost panicked. She'll come around. She has to. But I knew better. I wasn't coming around. Not this time. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I wanted to be, doing things on my own terms, breathing air that didn't carry the weight of someone else's needs. I was finally diving into books I'd stacked on shelves for years but never touched, cooking dishes I used to watch being made on TV with no intention of ever trying, and walking as long and as far as I wanted without checking the clock or thinking about what time dinner had to be on the table. Later that evening, there was a gentle knock at the door. Mrs. Zhang stood there, holding a container of soup, still warm, still steaming. I saw those people giving you trouble earlier, she said quietly, her expression kind. Was that family stuff? Used to be, I replied, accepting the soup with both hands. They're not your problem anymore, she said, almost with pride. Good. Life's too short to let people steal your peace, even when they share your blood. As her soup warmed on the stove, that truth settled in deep. This woman, someone who'd only known me for 3 weeks, had shown me more care, more thoughtfulness, more genuine human decency than my own son had managed in decades. Maybe blood didn't mean what we always said it did. Maybe it never had. Maybe real family wasn't about DNA, but about who respects your boundaries and lets you be at peace. That night, I slept without stirring, without the usual ache in my chest, knowing that tomorrow would come quietly and I wouldn't have to brace myself for it. Travis would have to figure out how to face a day without me for the first time in his life. 2 full months passed without a trace of him. I started to believe, cautiously, that maybe he'd finally let go, that maybe he'd accepted I was serious. This time, I was wrong. It started with a letter, not a message, not a voicemail, a real letter, handwritten, the paper folded neatly, slipped under my door like something out of a different decade. Travis had never written me a letter in his entire life. Not once. Dear Mom, it began. I've had time to think, and I realize now how badly I treated you. He wanted to make it right. He was sorry, he said, truly sorry. The letter stretched over 3 pages, all of it filled with apologies, admissions, vows to change. He said he'd gotten a steady job, said he and Krista were in counseling, said they'd moved into a smaller place and were finally learning how to live like adults. He said the kids asked about me every day, said they missed their grandmother, and didn't understand why I was gone. It was eloquent, heartfelt, the kind of thing that could fool someone who hadn't raised him. But I had. I knew better. Travis didn't do hard things. He didn't do accountability. That letter wasn't a breakthrough, it was a performance, a strategy, and something about it had Krista's fingerprints all over it. Still, I was curious. Just how far was he willing to go to sell this new version of himself? How much energy would he spend pretending to be someone who gave a damn? That night, I picked up the phone and dialed his number. Travis, I said, I got your letter. Mom. His voice cracked with relief, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. I was hoping you'd call. Did you believe it? I'm willing to give you a chance to show me, I said, slowly and clearly. But don't expect it to be easy. Anything, he said, without hesitation. I'll do anything. All right, I want you here Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, sharp. Wear clothes you can get dirty in. Wear clothes. Mrs. Zhang, our neighbor, she's 83 and needs help clearing out her garage. If you're really sorry for how you treated an older woman, you can prove it by showing up and helping. Another one. He went quiet. I could almost hear the gears grinding in his head. After a few seconds, he said, okay, I'll be there. Saturday came and went. No sign of Travis. I wasn't shocked, just let down in that tired, quiet kind of way. Not by him, by me, for thinking maybe he'd follow through this time. Around 10:30, my phone rang. Mom, I'm sorry. Krista had one of her migraines. I had to get the kids to school, and then the car died on me. And you, Travis. I cut in. Don't worry about it. No, I do worry. I want to make it right. I'll come by tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. Mrs. Zhang spends Sundays at church and then sees her sister. Okay, then next Saturday. That works, I told him. Same time, 8 in the morning. He missed that one too. Said work called him in unexpectedly. The Saturday after that, it was one of the kids being sick. By the 4th Saturday, I'd stopped setting my hopes on anything, but I kept saying yes, just to see how long he'd keep spinning out excuses. And then, 6 Saturdays in, he showed up. 3 hours late, sheepish, holding a coffee cup from that overpriced place a few blocks away. I know I'm late, he said, first. 3 hours late, I said back, but I'm here, and I brought you coffee. That vanilla latte you always used to like. I took it but didn't drink. Mrs. Zhang finished weeks ago. Travis, her son, came by and took care of it. His shoulders sank, right? Well, maybe there's something else I can help with. I studied him for a bit. He looked worn down, like life had taken a few things out of him, but he wasn't broken. Clothes were clean. Hair had product in it. He wasn't crashing in his car anymore. He'd found some place to land, and he didn't ask me to find it for him. Actually, there is something, I said. I've been volunteering over at the community center, reading books out loud to older folks who can't see too well anymore. They need more people. His face lifted. That sounds just right. I've always had a soft spot for older people. It's just who I am. So when Travis tried to say the same, I almost laughed out loud. He had never once shown the slightest bit of kindness or interest in the elderly. In fact, the older I got, the more he seemed annoyed by me, rolling his eyes when I moved too slow, getting impatient when I forgot and repeated things. The group meets Tuesdays at 9, I said. I'll tell them you'll be there. His smile flickered. Tuesday morning, I'm usually at work then. You said you'd do anything. I know I did, but I can't just skip work. I need this job to keep things going. What about Thursday afternoons? That's another time they meet. That's when I pick up the kids from school. I nodded, not saying much. Evenings. Then, there's a dinner program for seniors who live alone. They could use the help serving meals. Evenings are for family. Krista wants us to have dinner together every night. It's her thing. I set the full coffee cup down. So in 5 minutes, you've said no to Tuesday mornings, Thursday afternoons, and every evening. When exactly were you planning on showing me how sorry you are? He shifted in his seat, his face a little tight. Well, I could do weekends. That might work. You've already missed 6 Saturday sessions. That was different. Those were last-minute emergencies. Were they really? Because from where I sit, helping people always seems to be your lowest priority. Just like respecting me always came dead last. His face flushed, and he looked like a boy again, defensive and unsure. That's not fair, Mom. I am trying. Trying means showing up. Trying means sacrificing for someone else, not just expecting them to do it for you. It means you show up even when it's not easy or convenient. I stood up slowly. I was tired of these conversations that never went anywhere, tired of this whole act we kept doing. You know what, Travis? Don't bother with the volunteering. Don't bother trying to prove anything. What do you mean? He asked. I looked at him, this man I'd raised who still walked around like the world owed him something, and I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt done. I mean, you've already shown me everything I needed to see. He walked out that day angry and confused, and I never saw him again. Not because I was hiding, but because he finally realized I meant what I said. I didn't need his guilt or his efforts made out of obligation. I had already found something better. I'd found people who respected me without me having to beg for it. Mrs. Jong still dropped off soup twice a week. Miguel had started inviting me over for Sunday dinners with his whole family. And you know what? That was enough. The seniors at the community center lit up the moment I stepped through the door, their faces warm with the kind of welcome that wasn't forced or polite, but real. It caught me off guard, that feeling of being seen, not for what I could offer, or what I'd done, but just for showing up. For once, I was surrounded by people who valued me for being there, not for being useful. And in all the years I'd lived, trying to earn my place, that quiet kind of recognition felt like the biggest victory I'd ever had. A year after walking away from the life I used to know, I found myself standing in a hospital room next to a woman who had come to mean more to me than my own son ever did. Mrs. Jung lay still in the narrow hospital bed, dwarfed by the stiff white sheets, her body seeming impossibly small for someone who had filled a room with so much life. She was 84, and the stroke had taken away her ability to care for herself. Her son was across the country in Seattle, unable, or maybe unwilling, to come back and take care of her. I don't want to go to a nursing home, she whispered, her hand gripping mine with a surprising amount of strength. I just want to go home. I looked around the cold, impersonal room and thought back to when I first moved into the building, how she greeted me like an old friend. She brought me soup without asking why I was sad. She told me stories about her late husband while we sipped tea in her kitchen. She never asked for favors, never expected anything but friendship in return. What if you didn't have to? I said, keeping my voice low. Her eyes searched mine. What do you mean? What if you came home with me? That idea had been sitting in the back of my mind for a while, ever since her stroke. My apartment had 2 bedrooms, and I'd been wandering through it like a ghost, having full conversations with my plants, just so the silence wouldn't swallow me. She needed someone to help her do the small things, cook, clean, get dressed. I needed someone who saw me, who didn't measure my worth in dollars or favors. Ramona, I couldn't ask you to do that. You're not asking, I'm offering to. Weeks later, Mrs. Jong moved into my spare room. I set up her medications, took her to every therapy appointment, made sure she ate properly. In return, she brought warmth back into my space. She told stories that made me laugh until I cried. She showed me how to make dumplings better than anything I'd ever ordered. It never felt like a burden. It felt like I'd been given something I didn't know I needed. The shift in our lives was incredible. Within half a year, Mrs. Jung had recovered most of her independence. She could move around more easily, handle her own routine, and I discovered that giving care to someone who respected and appreciated me didn't feel like being drained. It felt like being filled. Miguel's family embraced me like I was one of them. His children called me Abuela Ramona, and when I spoke, they listened. Really listened to my stories about growing up in a time that felt like a different world to them. At the community center, I took charge of the reading program. I coordinated volunteers, came up with new ideas, helped turn it into something people looked forward to. The seniors there felt like the family I never thought I'd find. People who celebrated my birthday without being reminded, who noticed when I was tired, who cared when I wasn't smiling. One evening, as Mrs. Jong and I sat out on the balcony watching the sun settle behind the buildings, she turned to me with a question that stopped me in my tracks. Do you ever miss your old life? I thought about it for a moment. What I missed wasn't the life I had. It was the life I once imagined I could have had. I missed the son I thought I was raising, not the one I actually raised. Any regrets? Just one, I said, waiting so damn long to put myself first. That's when I saw him. Across the street, half hidden behind a tree, there was Travis. He'd been popping up every so often these past few months, never walking up to me, just standing there, watching. In the beginning, it rattled me. Now, it just made me feel sorry for him. Is that him? Mrs. Zhang asked, following my line of sight. I nodded. He still thinks I'm going to come around, that I'll get lonely enough, or guilty enough, to take him back. Are you? I looked around at the life I'd built. Mrs. Zhang, flipping pages beside me. Miguel's kids laughing downstairs in the courtyard. My little herb garden blooming across the balcony. Tomorrow I'd be helping out at the community center, and later, Mrs. Zhang and I would be making dinner together while she told me one of her late husband's god-awful jokes. No, I said, without a shred of doubt, I'm not. Mrs. Zhang smiled. Good, because family isn't about blood, dear. It's about people who show up for each other. Almost like she summoned him, Miguel leaned over his balcony and shouted, Ladies, my wife made too many tamales again. Should I bring some up? Always. Mrs. Zhang called back, laughing. I looked across the street again. Travis was still there, hovering like a ghost, waiting to be missed. But I wasn't haunted anymore. I'd never felt more whole. 2 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be living with an older Chinese woman I wasn't related to, sharing dinners with a Mexican family who'd basically adopted me, and spending my days helping other seniors rediscover joy, I'd have said they were out of their mind. But here I was, surrounded by people who loved me not for what I did for them, but for who I was, people who actually wanted me around, people who listened, respected me, and never made me feel like I took up too much space. Travis finally turned and walked away as the streetlights flickered on. Watching him go, I didn't feel a thing. Not mad, not sad, not even sorry. He was just someone I used to know, a man who once mattered, then chose not to anymore. Mrs. Zhang reached over and gave my hand a squeeze. Come on, she said. Miguel's bringing tamales, and I want to show you the wedding pictures from my grandson's big day. As we headed inside to our warm little apartment, I thought about something that hit deep. I'd spent 68 years trying to earn love from people who couldn't give it. And at 69, I finally recognized what real love looked like when it showed up for free. I'd never been richer. The last thing I saw before sliding the balcony door shut was my reflection in the glass. I looked different, lighter, younger, even though I was another year older. The face looking back was someone who knew her value, who'd finally found where she belonged, and who was done accepting scraps when she deserved the whole damn feast. Some folks spend their whole lives searching for a real family. I found mine at 69, and it couldn't be more right. I signed the hospice forms with a hand steadier than I expected. The pen glided smooth, decisive, over the dotted line. Name, date, signature. They offered me tissues and asked if I needed time. I didn't. I'd had plenty. Mrs. Zhang passed away at 6:12 in the morning, just as the sky over our building turned the color of old bruises, deep purple fading to dull gray. I sat beside her through the night, holding a hand that had once kneaded dumpling dough with twice the strength of women half her size. She slipped away the same way she'd lived, quietly, respectfully, no big fuss. That was 3 weeks ago. And her shoes still sat by the front door like she'd be back from the store any minute. The funeral was simple, just like she wanted. No wailing, no long speeches. A photo of her in the garden, a plate of sweet red bean buns, incense curling up like memory into the air. Her son showed up halfway through, looking tired and rushed, reeking of guilt he didn't bother to hide. I didn't say much to him. What was there left to say? Afterward, I went home, poured myself a cup of chamomile tea, and sat on the couch. We used to share her on one end with her crossword puzzles, me on the other with whatever mystery novel I was picking through that week. Her absence pressed into the cushions, into the corners of the room, into my lungs. That night, I lit one of her old candles and let it burn until dawn. Jasmine and sandalwood, her scent. I didn't cry. The grief didn't come in sobs or dramatic outbursts. It came in the silence, in the way I caught myself reaching for 2 mugs instead of 1, in the stupid habit of pausing a show to explain it to her, only to realize I was talking to an empty chair. People kept telling me to take it easy, be gentle with yourself, And my personal favorite, keep busy. As if folding laundry or walking around Target could stitch up a heart that's missing a beat. The truth was, I didn't want to stay in that apartment anymore. Every corner echoed, every light switch she used to flick, every drawer I'd watched her organize like it was sacred geometry. So, I made a decision, again. I sold the place, didn't tell Travis, didn't tell anyone, really, except Miguel and his wife, who cried when I broke the news. They begged me to stay in the building, said their home was mine too, but I'd learned something in the past 2 years. Moving on isn't always about escape. Sometimes it's about expansion, about finding the next version of yourself, the one who's ready for more. So, I found a rental 3 hours north, in a small town just off the interstate. Trees thick with pine, a main street with one diner, and a grocery store that still closes at 9. It's quiet, safe, nobody knows my name, and that's exactly the way I want it right now. I didn't bring much. A few framed photos, my books, her jade necklace, the one she gave me without ceremony. One night while we were washing dishes, "Your family," she'd said, drying her hands with a dishcloth worn soft as flannel. "And family takes care of each other." I wore it every day since. On my second morning in the new place, I walked to the coffee shop. No chain, just a counter and a kid with half a mustache and too much confidence. I ordered a black coffee and sat near the window, watching the sleepy town unfold. Across the street, an old man swept the sidewalk in front of his hardware store like he was preparing for royalty. A young mom juggled her toddler and a bag of groceries while her car beeped angrily at her. Life, just happening. It felt good to watch it without needing to be part of it. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" The voice was raspy, like gravel dragged across linoleum. I looked up and saw a woman about my age, maybe older. Hair dyed the kind of red no one's born with. A smile that looked like it had to be earned. "Not anymore," I said, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. She introduced herself as Eleanor, said she ran the bookstore 2 blocks down. We talked for almost an hour, about nothing, about everything. And when she found out I'd just moved in, she didn't ask where I was from or why I left. She just said, "Good, we need more women who know things around here." The next day, I found myself in her shop, narrow aisles, books stacked to the ceiling, a tabby cat asleep on the front counter like it owned the place. Eleanor handed me a novel and said, "You're gonna love this one. Woman burns her life down and starts fresh." I laughed. Sounds familiar. By the end of the week, I was helping her sort donations in the back room. Not because I needed to. Because I wanted to. I hadn't felt that in years. There's something strange about starting over at 70. People treat you like you're supposed to be winding down. Like the big decisions are behind you. Like you should be shrinking into your life, not growing it. But that's not how this feels. It feels like I'm finally breathing from the right part of my chest. I still get the occasional call from Travis. I stopped answering after the third one. His voicemails are always a variation of the same line. "I've changed. Mom, give me one more chance." Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. Doesn't matter. That chapter's closed. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what might have happened if I'd stayed, if I'd swallowed my pride one more time, if I'd kept being the good mother, kept setting plates for people who never looked me in the eye. I wonder what kind of woman I'd be now. Then, I make a cup of tea, sit out on my little porch with a blanket around my shoulders, and remember the most important thing I've learned in all these years. You can't build peace for other people and expect them to give it back. You have to take it, claim it, guard it, and that's exactly what I plan to keep doing. The envelope didn't have a return address, just my name, written in a sloppy, familiar scrawl, like the writer couldn't decide if he wanted me to open it or burn it. I found it tucked in between the weekly coupon flyers and a charity appeal letter I didn't remember signing up for. The paper was stiff, expensive, the kind Travis would have never thought to buy for himself. I stood in the kitchen for a full 5 minutes before opening it. It wasn't a letter. Not this time. It was an invitation. "You are invited to attend the baptism of Savannah Ray Collins, Sunday, 11 a.m., Fellowship First Church." At the bottom, scribbled in pen, "We'd like you to come. We miss you. Please." Signed, not by Travis, not by Krista, but by the oldest granddaughter, Madison, the one who used to roll her eyes when I spoke, who once called me the weird old lady with rules. I stood there for a long time. The kettle had long gone cold. Outside, The wind swept dust across the porch steps, and the pine trees creaked like aching bones. I didn't cry. I also didn't throw it away. I didn't tell Eleanor. I didn't tell Miguel. I kept it to myself, like a secret shame, unsure what it meant that I'd even considered going. But by Saturday night, I'd already laid out my clothes, pressed slacks. A blouse, Mrs. Zhang once complimented. Not church clothes, not really, but respectful. The kind of outfit you wear when you want to show up, but not stay. At 10:50 a.m., I parked in the far corner of the church lot. I didn't go in right away. Just sat with the engine off, hands gripping the wheel like I was about to drive off a cliff. The doors were wide open. Ushers in ties holding little programs and smiles they'd practiced all morning. When I stepped through the double doors, I was hit with the smell, wood polish, perfume, something artificial. The choir was humming, voices gentle, eyes closed in practiced reverence. Travis was in the second row. So was Krista. Their kids, Madison and Jacob, looked older, more aware. Madison spotted me first. Her eyes went wide, then softer. She nudged her dad. Travis turned. I braced. He stood up, slowly, no big show. Just stood and walked toward me, with none of the old arrogance, none of the practiced charm. Just a man who'd lost something and finally knew it. "Thanks for coming," he said. His voice wasn't desperate, wasn't smug. Just quiet, human. I gave a small nod. "Your daughter asked me." I figured the least I could do was respect that. He stepped aside to let me pass, but I didn't take the seat he offered. I slid into the back row, alone, near the door. I wasn't here for reunions. I was here to see, to witness. The baby was sweet. Soft cheeks, tiny fists curled like she was holding on to something invisible. During the vows, Krista turned around. We made eye contact. She looked tired in a different way, less put together, more honest. No smile, no tears, just a nod, slow and solemn. That was enough. After the ceremony, I slipped out before the reception. I didn't need cake. I didn't need hugs or photos. I'd seen what I came to see, that they were surviving without me, that maybe, just maybe, they were starting to learn how to be people without needing to take pieces of someone else back home. I found Eleanor in the bookstore, dusting the romance section with one hand, holding a phone to her ear with the other. "Did you go?" she asked, hanging up before I could speak. I paused. "Yeah, how was it?" "Strange," I said. "Quiet." They didn't grovel. I didn't forgive. But I didn't feel like a ghost, either. She studied me for a long moment. Then she pulled out 2 chairs and poured coffee from her thermos, like she knew I wasn't done talking. "I used to think peace meant finally getting an apology," I said. "But now I think it just means not needing one anymore." She didn't say anything. She just clinked her mug to mine. Outside, the wind shifted. Summer was almost gone. The leaves would change soon, then fall. I looked out at the town, this place that had taken me in when I had nothing but my name and the will to start over. And I thought, maybe peace isn't something you find. Maybe it's something you build. One morning, one meal, one true friendship at a time. The next day, I mailed something back to Madison. Just a postcard, no return address. It said, "You did the right thing. Be good to each other. Grandma Ramona." We're telling this story based on real events. Names and places have been changed to protect the identity of the person involved. It's the story of a mother who sacrificed her entire life for her children and grandchildren, only to be disrespected, used, and abandoned. But when she had nothing left to lose, she rose. And this time, she lived for herself. We don't tell this to judge anyone, but to make you stop and think. How many mothers are suffering in silence inside their own homes? Now, I'm curious about you, the one listening to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever lived through something like this? Tell me in the comments. Meanwhile, I'm leaving you with 2 more stories on the final screen, favorites on this channel, and ones that will no doubt surprise you. Thank you for staying with me this far.